right. Welcome to another week of conversations. Leo niko na soup. Hii baridi kwa Nyeri wacha tu. Today, I want us to talk about something I haven't heard about from anybody else, actually. My team and I were discussing this, and hata mimi nimepatiwa information sikuwa najua. We've been so engrossed with the finance bill. And as I explained, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, the finance bill tells you where money will come from. Then the budget tells you where money will go. So we've been so engrossed with where money is coming from and fighting about whether we want that money to come or not, that I'm not hearing enough people talking about where the money that will come will actually go. And Treasury was kind enough to do a graphic illustration of where the money that they're going to raise is going to come, is going to go. And I'm going to be raising some interesting observations. For example, we have a 3.68 trillion budget, right? Now, for you to understand what that means, first it's important to understand that government collects money daily. Every day, KRA collects money from taxes from one way or the other, you know. Government borrows money and the money comes in large chunks, but essentially, government collects money daily. For you to be able to fund a 3.68 trillion budget for 1 year, that's 365 days. You need to be able to raise 10 billion shillings on average every single day. Let me repeat that again. We need to be able to raise 10 billion shillings every single day to be able to fund our 3.6 trillion budget. Of course, some of that money is going to come from loans, yeah? But if we were to raise that money by ourselves, assuming we are not going to borrow money from anybody, we'd have to be able to raise 10 billion shillings every single day, without fail. I think the best we've ever done, our best day, was 6 billion. I think during election years, we come down to 2 or 3 billion per day. So it tells you where we are and why it is important for us to keep thinking about where we're going to get money from. As I quoted from some IMF report I had read, also something I commented about last week, the only way developing countries can finance their budget is from raising taxes or from borrowing money, right? Countries like Kenya that don't have an extractive economy means we're not able to sell anything except our labor. Our human resource that's where we get our money to run our country from. So anyway, so we have a 3.6 trillion budget. Where is that money going? First, counties. County governments are getting 385 billion, right? Equalization fund, another 10 billion. Parliament gets 41 billion. Public administration, international relations, 3.27 billion. Which actually, the public administration is what gets 327 billion, gives 10.9 billion to equalization fund, 41 billion to parliament, 53 billion to NGCDF. National security gets 189 billion. Education gets 628 billion. It's always the largest budget item that we have every year. Health gets 141 billion. Agriculture and food security gets 87.9 billion. Energy, infrastructure, and ICT gets 468 billion. Environmental protection and water, natural resources gets 120 billion. Economic and commercial affairs gets 45 billion. Interest payments, pensions, and net lending, 986 billion. Social protection and affirmative action, 68.6 billion. GJLO gets 231 billion, out of which 23 billion goes to the judiciary. Under social safety nets, we have 7.9 billion going to orphans and vulnerable children, 18 billion going to elderly persons. Presidential secondary school bursary scheme gets 400 million. Severe disability gets 1.2 billion. Hunger safety net, 5.7 billion. Fund for persons with disability, 500 million. Social and economic inclusion project, 3.3 billion. National drought emergency fund, 300 million. Social welfare society gets 900 million. That's where our money is going this year. And what we need to be thinking about, first, we need to figure out how to track that money, make sure it goes where it's supposed to go. Second, if you're in business, now you know where money is going. So hapa ni kujipanga. Figure out if you're in agriculture, you know you're going to 87.9 billion. Second thing that we need to think about, under President Uhuru Kenyatta, we had the Big Four. Was it Agenda 4? Was it Big Agenda 4? Was it Big Four? Something like that. President William Ruto has added something to make 5, but it's being called BETTER, which stands for Bottom-Up Economic Transformation Agenda. That is his concept for how he wants to develop the country, at least for this term. Under BETTER, and it's important for us to think about this, and these are the kind of things we're supposed to be talking about, by the way. I wish our politics could be focused on this kind of things. Under BETTER, we have approximately 7 things that we're going to be focusing on this year or this term for the next 5 years, so that you know how to be able to judge the performance of this particular government. The first thing, BETTER wants to focus on reducing cost of living. Second, increasing employment. Third, incentivizing investment, encouraging people to invest and produce. Fourth, try and achieve a more equitable distribution of income. Fifth, enhance social security, right? Sixth, expand the tax base. That is something that I've talked about a lot. If we're going to expand the tax base, first we reduce our taxes per person, and then we increase the money that we give to the government. And finally, increase our foreign exchange earnings. As we're going into this, areas to focus on, the key areas that this money is going to go into: agricultural transformation and inclusive growth, micro, small and medium enterprise and MSMEs as something that has been consistent, but it's also because a lot of our businesses operate from within this sector. Then money is going to housing and settlement, money is going to healthcare, and then the fifth one, the additional that has not been mentioned by any government so far, is the digital superhighway and the creative industry. This is big for young people. One of the things I really got excited about is to hear that we're going to get 25,000 hotspots across the country. If we're able to get 25,000 hotspots across the country, it means free Wi-Fi in 25,000 places. What does that do? Every young person who has a phone, every person who has access, who has a phone that can access internet, you can start anything. You can start blogging, you can start TikTok, you can sell, buy and sell, you can broker, you can write. There's so much opportunity on the internet. I mean, we keep thinking about the jobs that are available. There are thousands of jobs available on the internet. Doing research for people, writing notes for people, so much work. And number 5, digital superhighway and the creative industry is a big one. It's a big one if we think about that. I know we all know about factors of production. We have primary production, which is primarily agricultural, just production, producing something. Secondary is value addition, manufacturing, and then of course, tertiary is service. Now, a lot of our taxes are focused within the service sector, which is why every time there's a tax increment, we have a big shout, because the service industry is what we call jobs. It's where people wear ties, suits and ties and go to work. It's white collar. And unfortunately, most of us think that is where jobs are. But we have this primary and secondary, which is production in agriculture, and manufacturing, which is blue-collar work, that has a lot of money. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to put those two sectors into the tax bracket, and we have to figure out how to put them into the tax bracket. Because if we can, again, we increase our taxes and we reduce how much each individual has to pay per person. So, what are the numbers? What are the numbers that are going into these particular sectors? I think, again, this particular budget, President has focused his money in sectors. So, in terms of numbers, the highest sector that is getting money is infrastructure, as expected. This is roads, buildings, right? Construction. And here, there's 122 billion from this particular budget that is going to go into infrastructure. The second is the social sector. This is social networks, you think in healthcare and things like that. This has 95 billion. The third one, finance and the production environment. Just trying to, production economy, sorry. How do we keep the money circulating? We have 35 billion there. The fourth one, environment and natural resources. There's a lot of money here. The government has set aside 15 billion, but I know internationally there's a lot of money going into environment and natural resources. If you can figure out how to tap into that. And then the final one that has the smallest allocation is governance and public administration. I guess here the idea is we're going to spend a lot less money in just keeping the machinery moving than in investing in places where money comes from. Now, there's something, this is advice to people who are looking for something to do. The government is putting money in what it's calling value chain, right? And it's quite a bit that's going into value chain. Agricultural value chain is getting 8.6 billion shillings. Now, agricultural value chain, you're thinking about leather, you're thinking about cotton, you're thinking about dairy, you're thinking about edible oils, you're thinking about tea, you're thinking about rice, blue economy, natural resources, forestry and building materials. If you can figure out how to tap into any one of those industries, the government is actually encouraging that business and put money behind there. And then you figure out how to do value addition in any one of those sectors. I'm sure you can figure out how to tap into the government on that. So, where is the money going? Agricultural transformation, 49 billion. As I said, 8.6 billion going to value addition. Fertilizer subsidies, for farming you have 4.5 B. Leather getting 350 million. I know I've always talked, when I was in office, I kept talking about Dedan Kimathi University and how they have an amazing course on leather manufacturing. And they never really get enough students. And one of the interesting things about leather, the leather study, going to school to study leather, is that you're nearly guaranteed to get a job. And government has put 350 million into that particular sector, into that particular industry. And then, of course, small-scale irrigation. This is the bread and butter of our economy, has 1.4 billion shillings. This is what it's looking at. Today, I just want to take us through an overview, as you have heard, broken down numbers. That is the budget that was unveiled on Thursday by the CS for Treasury, Bwana Njuguna. And I think it's going to be important for us to engage on it, understand it. I wish we could engage on it and understand it as much as we did on the finance bill, because this is actually where it is. The finance bill was a plan, projection. Every shilling that is found in the finance bill goes into one of these things. So this is actually the most critical thing that we need to understand. Where is the money going? One, so that you can track it. Two, you can insist on accountability. Three, you can align yourself. Remember, the government is also one of the biggest supplier, one of the biggest promoters of business. If you're able to align yourself and make sure you're somewhere along this line, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with being a supplier for business or benefiting from the money that is being put into this, into the sector, into the various sectors, because it is part of your money. So if you can align yourself, if you're in agriculture, figure out how to do value addition. If you have cows like myself, or you're planting onions like I am, or you're having a small hotel like this one. But then, you know, a hotel is a value addition or part of agriculture. You get food, you come, you cook it, you sell it to people. That's value addition. So just figure out how to do value addition along the way of production of what you're doing. And let's see whether we can grow our country. So that's my focus today. I will now start, or we're starting a conversation on the budget. And even as we continue into next week, we're going to go into more specific details of some of the various sectors, some of the various things that I have raised here. But I do hope we're going to see this conversation happening more on our media. I would like to challenge the politicians in office to spend a bit more time just trying to explain this budget to Mwananchi, so that Wanjiku understands where the money is going, so that even as you hear you are being charged taxes, you can tell where they're going. I would love to hear these conversations coming from economists, of course, simplified, right? One of the people who keeps really amazing me at how good he is at simplifying complex conversations is the Deputy President. And I hope to hear conversations in the kind of language that he uses, so that Wanjiku in the village can be able to understand what the budget for this year looks like. That's all I have for today. At Rwari, as I said, we have terrific soup. It's really good for this period of time. Visitors, we still have good nyama choma, we still have good pilau. Let's keep growing our country. God bless you. God bless Kenya. Thank you.